Within the very popular Hamilton Khaki Field collection, the Murph has stood out for both being a refined option as well as its connection to the acclaimed 2014 film Interstellar. But since the watch's mass market debut in 2019, the running point of criticism has been the 42mm case. It is not often when brands give people exactly what they want, but this is the exception because this new Murph that we're going to be looking at here is 38mm. Let's jump in. So in covering this new Murph, we'll cover a few different categories. First, we'll look at some of the details of this watch, go into more of a in-depth review, and then final considerations before buying at the end. And also I do want to mention that if you do purchase something from our site before the end of the year, you will get an invitation to our private live stream where I'm going to be talking, doing a Q&A. But in addition to that, going to be featuring some of my team members here. We have Will, who does all the product photography. He'll be giving some pointers. We also have our content manager, Ben, who is formerly a commercial diver, giving some of the insider trade of dive watches and what is myth versus reality. And then Mark Bernardo, he leads all of our editorial division of written content on our site, author of the book Airtime as well as others. And he's going to be talking about the history of pilot watches and things that you may not already know. Also, of course, if you're liking what you're seeing from the Murph in this video, definitely check it out. We'll have a link in the description. We are an authorized dealer of Hamilton. So Hamilton certainly has a history that we have discussed on the channel in the past, with American roots dating back to 1892 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and building a reputation primarily around their creation of field watches with real military pedigree. Although another strong association consumers have with the brand has to be their connection to film and cinema, with the first Hamilton watch making its debut on the big screen in 1932's film Shanghai Express. This showcasing of watches in film has been a constant element that has never disrupted, with watches being seen in over 500 films such as Blue Hawaii starring Elvis Presley, Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, and its many features within Men in Black, just to name a few here. However, of the many Hamilton watches that have made an appearance on the big screen, Christopher Nolan's 2014 film Interstellar is one of the most beloved in recent memory, with the watch also playing a key role in the plot of the film. No spoilers here though. With the success of the film, it was only a matter of time before the Murph was officially released to the public, a day that finally came in 2019. The watch paid reverence to the watch on the screen, from its matching 42mm diameter cathedral handset, and with Eureka being displayed on the second hand in Morse code. That watch was an instant hit essentially, but as I alluded to in the intro, the watch was not free of critics, with many having some qualms with its wear on the wrist being too large. Fast forward 3 years later, and we recently were greeted with what I think many were asking for: a smaller Khaki Field Murph at 38mm with a compact lug-to-lug, while also being less expensive compared to its older brother at $895. Diving into the wearability more specifically, the new Murph comes in at 38mm in diameter with 11.3mm in thickness and a short lug-to-lug of 44.7mm, making this well over 2mm shorter in length than the standard Khaki Field mechanical. The 38mm Murph wears fantastic on a smaller wrist, but I also would say it works well for a wide variety of wrists and those that love a vintage style presentation. Set between versatile 20mm lugs, the watch comes with a glossy alligator grain outer surface that is backed by calfskin. It tapers 18mm and terminates with a sculpted pin buckle that is signed with the Hamilton logo. The central case presents linear brushing along its near vertical sides, with circular brushing along the front-facing surfaces. No question utilitarian in nature, this model lacks any kind of beveling on the sharply downswept lugs, allowing for the sloped and polished bezel to stand out against the predominantly brushed surfaces. At 3, a polished and signed push-pull crown rests in the usual spot, pairing with the screw-down exhibition caseback and enabling this watch's 100 meters of water resistance. On the anterior side, we have a slightly domed sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating that does a better job compared to the basic Khaki Field model, in just my opinion. At least when we were photographing it, it did just have some ease to it compared to some of the more entry-level models, but it does give us a view of that dial underneath. So despite its printed format, the Murph dial still presents one of the most charming and refined takes on the khaki design concept, utilizing a matte black primary surface that allows the off-white printing to shine. At the outskirts, a series of fine linear markings are punctuated at the 5-minute positions, with Arabic minute indices offering a sort of half railway effect. Just within, prominent printed hour markers stand all but alone, with this format foregoing the 24-hour printing that is a hallmark of virtually every other khaki field model. And losing the 24-hour scale also allows it to take a half step away from the khaki's military roots while also presenting a clean and legible format. The hands are perhaps the most familiar and defining aspect of this design, being done in the cathedral style, instantly giving more of a heritage impression. One principal difference between the 38mm version and the original 42mm model is the seconds hand, as the smaller variant lacks the Morse code for Eureka, which serves as a reference to Interstellar. This is probably going to be the biggest point of contention regarding this newer variant. I can share my general thoughts on this at the end of the video. Dial text is also understated, with only the Hamilton word mark at 12 and the khaki and automatic at 6. As is often the case with faux patina shade of luminescent material, the Arabic hour markers and hands do offer some glow, but the level of shine is far from extraordinary. Beneath an exhibition crystal in the screw-down caseback, we have the Hamilton H10 caliber supplied by another Swatch Group brand in ETA. This caliber is more specifically known as the ETA C07.611 and utilizes base architecture from the ETA 2824 with a frequency that has been slowed from the traditional 4 Hz to the slower 21,600 vibrations per hour or 3 Hz, in turn allowing for a longer power reserve for the movement. Also, this version of the C07 caliber also offers a non-metallic Nivicron hairspring to help alleviate the negative effects of magnetism on the balance. While it is in view a nice feature for some, the H10 doesn't offer much in the way of finishing, with simple matte finishes and some beveling on select bridges to offset the signed Hamilton rotor. Despite not being much to look at, this is an excellent caliber, no question about it, that has already been proven in millions of watches, earning an impressive reputation for its durability, reliability, and accuracy. And as an aside, there is no ghost date position. I noticed some questions about that when we posted this on Instagram, so I do want to clarify that as well. Speaking anecdotally to the accuracy presented by this example we're reviewing here, the Murph kept great time at -1 to +3 seconds a day when testing across 5 different positions. And while you can't necessarily count on these numbers, I have seen numerous examples of solid regulation from Hamilton. So all right, now to unpack looking at this new Hamilton Khaki Murph, some cons, some pros, and who is this best suited for? So let's start with some of the negative things about this watch. Number one, you do have the lume and the anti-reflective coating that I think just simply could be better. This is not anything new. If you are familiar with the Hamilton Khaki collection, I would say that the anti-reflective coating and just how this photographs is a little bit better than the conventional khakis, but you do have to mention that. But I think the two big points that people are going to bring up mostly for this watch is going to be the fact that many people might just want to opt for the traditional Hamilton Khaki Auto, which is a fair point. For someone that is looking at this watch, you're going more for the design than you are maybe the same level of value that comes with the Hamilton Khaki Auto. But then again, that Hamilton Khaki Auto and the mechanicals are probably some of the best value you're going to find in all of watchmaking. So it's hard to compete with that to begin with, but certainly going to be something to consider when looking at this watch. And then the other thing that I did mention in this video was the no sign of Morse code on the second hand. That for me is something I'd like to see on this watch, but I also understand why Hamilton didn't do it. It makes the 42mm, which is the direct size in comparison to what was featured in the film, it makes it more in alignment as being the movie watch. This was more of a creation, I think, just as a response to what so many people were requesting of Hamilton. I'm happy they did it. Would I've liked them to include the Morse code? Yes. Is it a deal breaker for me? Absolutely not. And I do think some of that is being overblown quite a bit. But now let's talk about the pros. And I do think that this is probably Hamilton's strongest release of the year. And they just snuck it in out of nowhere. I had no idea this was coming. But when it did actually happen, I was like, okay, this is great. I was not expecting this at all, but very well done and well played by Hamilton. First, you have to mention the dimensions. The dimensions on this watch are simply fantastic. Not only to see the Murph downsized, but also the ratio of the case diameter to lug is also more compact than the conventional khaki. You're talking about over 2 millimeters more condensed down compared to the traditional khaki field mechanical. So that is going to be a very, very compelling point. Even if you're not into the Murph styling, if you just like a more compact, do-it-all field watch for under, say, in this case, $900, this is going to be that much more compelling for you. When you look at the marketplace, I think this still stands, if you look outside of Hamilton, as a definitive leader. Then you have the interesting film tie-in, the more refined looks that come with this one. I think this has more of an ability to be dressed up compared to some of the other models. It is going to be less expensive to the original, despite being more than the conventional khaki. 100 meters of water resistance, so you can push this through its paces quite a bit. Power reserve of 80 hours. I think this is probably one of the most versatile khaki options that you can go for. And simply put, if you are looking for a field watch under $1,000, you were maybe waiting on the sideline and you love the look of the Murph, but you couldn't pull it off and you have a smaller wrist, this is one you need to go for. This is one that I'm probably, I have a conventional khaki on right now, but now I almost want to be like, hey, can I swap this out for this instead? Because I really love this watch. I think this was well done by Hamilton. I was not expecting them to actually make a smaller version of this, despite all of the requests, because of this staying true to the original prop watch from the film. I felt that they were not going to deviate from that, but the fact that they did, I think it's great, and it shows that they're listening. And when a brand can show that they're listening to a consumer base, typically what I've found is it's a relief for many enthusiasts out there. So job well done from Hamilton, and probably their best release of 2022 without question. But all right, guys, that is my take looking at this new Hamilton Khaki Murph. What is your take on the new 38mm size? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do you think it stacks up well compared to the original? I'd love to see all your takes down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. Also, if you're in the market for this watch, we do have it available on TeddyBaldassarre.com, a full authorized dealer of Hamilton watches, as well as 30 other additional brands. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.